Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, you're well, guys. So, today we're going to do some interview practice. And how we're going to make it work is I'm going to pretend that I'm a university graduate who is applying for an audit and assurance role at PwC in their Watford offices. And I'm going to be interviewed by a partner called John. Now, John is going to ask me about 10 questions. And what I want you guys to do is not to focus too much on the questions that I'm being asked, because it may be that when you get round to doing your interview, you only ask one or two of these questions and the others don't even come up. I want you to focus more on my responses, how I talk about my skills, how I talk about my experiences, how I show off my research. Is there anything I do in my body language to show enthusiasm and positivity? Right? And inshallah, you could take those tips and pointers and adapt them to your own situation, and that will help you, inshallah, achieve success at the partner interview stage. So let's get straight into it. Yeah? So I'd say the assessment center is going quite well, especially when you consider that my internet hasn't crashed. So that's pretty much a success story in itself. I mean, if we weren't in a pandemic, it would have been great to have come down and meet you in person and also check out the new Watford offices, because I understand you've gone through a refurbishment recently. So, John, I'm originally from Birmingham. I moved down to London to study history at Queen Mary's University. And I chose history because I wasn't really sure of what career path I wanted to follow when I was doing my A levels. So I thought, you know what? I'll study something that I enjoy. And whilst I was studying history in my first year, I also took on a part-time job. I'm at local Tesco's working on the weekends. And I joined there as a customer assistant. And just about 6 months ago, I recently got promoted to team leader. And to be honest with you, John, I really, really enjoy that role. It's great because it gives me an opportunity to lead and manage others. And it's also helped me develop my communication skills as well, because I work with a very diverse team who come from a wide range of backgrounds. And outside of work in uni, I really, really love playing sports. So I really enjoy playing football and cricket. So the lockdown and the pandemic has been really tough for me, because I've gone from being a person who's constantly interchanging between activities, never sitting, in the same place for a long period of time, to now being confined at home. So the pandemic has been quite tough, I'd say, but it's also given me an opportunity to volunteer with a local charity. And that's something I've really, really enjoyed doing. It's really drove home the importance of making a positive impact in your local community. And it's something I'd definitely like to continue once the lockdown is over. So I'll be honest with you, John, accounting and auditing weren't really on my list of potential careers. But because I was undecided, I set up a LinkedIn profile. And as soon as I set this up, I was constantly seeing content about the Big Four. And it was largely positive. So people commenting about the fact that they secured a training offer at the firms. People commenting about the fact that they were passing their exams. People talking about their promotions. So it was largely positive, and that really piqued my interest. So I went away and did my research, and I looked into the Big Four, and I saw, they provide a lot of services from, consulting, tax, accounting, assurance, to large Fortune 100 and FTSE 100 clients. And when I was on the PwC website, I saw some of those clients included, TJX Europe, Walt Disney, and Activision Blizzard. And that was quite big for me, because these are brands that I use on a day-to-day basis. So I thought, you know what, it may be a good experience to work on these clients. So that really got my interest going. But one of my concerns at the time was, I haven't studied maths since GCSE. And as most of the training programs offered either the ACA or CA qualifications, will that count against me? Do I need to be good at maths? So I ended up speaking to a lot of recent trainees at graduate recruitment events. And that was great, because they dismissed all of my concerns. And I ended up speaking to a former history graduate who was a trainee at PwC, which was great, because he spoke very highly and said, the fact that he hadn't studied maths at university didn't matter at all. So that made me feel comfortable that this is a potential career route I could follow. And the thing I'd say that appealed to me about audit was the fact that it was a mix of the other service lines. And what I mean is, even if you're an auditor, you'll do some form of consulting, because you'll have to manage relationships with clients, identify areas for improvement, and give feedback. And you'll get exposure to tax as well, because you'll be reviewing certain taxes such as PAYE, VAT, corporation tax as part of the financial statements, and definitely accounting, because the main part of audit is reviewing the financial statements, and you'll also develop knowledge of accounting standards. So I thought, you know what, audit is great, and it may be a potential area where I get a holistic understanding of other service lines as well. And more from a personal development point of view, I felt that audit would suit my current skill set. So at the moment, I feel I'm building my communication skills. And I think, the fact that you get to meet clients on a face-to-face basis at their offices will definitely help build those communication skills. I'll get the opportunity to present to senior management. That will definitely help. And I like the fact that as part of audit, you get the opportunity to travel. And I really like the variety, the fact that I could spend a couple of weeks in the office and then maybe a couple of weeks in college studying for an ACA exam, and then maybe spend a couple of weeks out traveling to different client sites. So that variety really does appeal to me. So John, in terms of great training, the ability to work in large teams and working on diverse clients, I'll be honest with you, you could probably get that at any big four firm. But what initially attracted to me about PwC was the client base that I mentioned. But I think that was a bit naive, because obviously PwC have so many clients that it's not guaranteed that I would get to work on those clients, especially because they span a range of various sectors. So, I may end up in the natural resources sector, for example. So I'll put that reason to the side. But one of the things I'm very, very big on is diversity and inclusion, right? And that's been a big part of corporate culture for a number of years, but really exploded this year because, as you'll be aware, of the Black Lives Matter movement. And what I found was a lot of companies were talking about this, but they weren't really doing much. Organizations were putting up that black photo on Instagram showing we stand with the movement, but that's not really tangible, right? It's easy to talk about something, but much harder to take action. But what really, made me happy about PwC was I did some research and I found out that Kevin Ellis actually held a webcast with the entire PwC UK workforce, which was great. And he didn't only just talk about diversity and inclusion at PwC, but he also agreed to some tangible actions, such as the mandatory training on unconscious bias for all employees. And that really appealed to me. It was really positive to read about. And linked to that, I'm a firm believer of you can't be what you can't see. And on the webcast, Kevin was actually joined by other partners. I think there was Teresa and Albertha, who are both Black and ethnic minority partners. So it led me to do some more research and see, okay, how many partners are Black and ethnic minority? Is there anyone that I can relate to? And it was great to see that, because that really showed me that this isn't a firm that I can just start my career in. This is somewhere where potentially in 15 to 20 years' time, I could become a partner and I can continue to promote change for the better. So that really, really appeals to me about PwC over the other firms. And the final thing that sealed the deal was you can only do so much research, right? It's only going to give you so much information from reading articles about websites. But that experience I got from speaking from recent trainees was valuable. And when I was speaking to the history graduate I mentioned who works at PwC, he had very positive things to say. Whether it's work, college, the culture, the workforce, he enjoyed all aspects, and most of it was very positive. And that really sealed the deal for me. So as a first year audit trainee, John, I probably wouldn't be an expert in audit. So I'd expect to be working as part of a larger team where I'm building my understanding of how PwC operate, our general sort of work practices, how we document our audits, and I'll also be attending college at the same time. So that would help with my technical understanding of audit and accounting standards. And depending on the client size, I'd probably be working under the supervision of a more senior graduate or even a manager. And in my day-to-day, I'd probably be reviewing financial information. So that would involve chasing that financial information from the clients and reviewing certain account areas. And as I progress through my first year, I'd expect to take on more seniority. So maybe reviewing more complex account areas, performing more testing around controls, and maybe even understanding the impact of external forces on our client and updating our understanding. And at the same time, I mentioned college, so I'd probably be completing the certificate stage of my exams and attending college for the professional stage of the ACA. So at the end of the first year, I expect to have made good progress where I've gained good experience and also made good progress in passing my exams. So I think my actions would depend on the type of mistake that I've found. So say if it's a minor documentation point, it probably wouldn't be as big of a risk or have as big of an impact in the current year's audit. Whereas say on the other hand, it's an error in the financial statements, or say we were provided with the wrong evidence to review by the client, I'd expect that to have a much bigger impact. So depending on what I found, I'd probably investigate and try and understand how that error occurred. Was it the fault of a person? Was it something that we've not considered? How far it goes back? Is it impacting just last year or previous years? And once I've done that investigation piece, I'd probably be speaking with a more senior member of staff, so maybe the audit lead or the manager, giving them an understanding of what I found so that they can go away and make a decision, because I appreciate they'd have a much better relationship with the client, understanding with the client, and be more knowledgeable of all the various different accounting and auditing standards. But what I would definitely do is use that opportunity to learn, understand the rationale behind the decision that was taken, and potentially use that and apply that learning to my other audits as well. So the audit industry, John, has received a lot of negative press recently. So currently there's ongoing plans to break off the audit divisions of the big four firms, and that's sort of come as a result of the KPMG audit of Carillion and the Grant Thornton audit of Patisserie Valerie. And both of those firms, as I'm sure you'll be aware, are facing lawsuits of hundreds of millions of pounds. So for me, what that says is I think we need greater transparency, right? The public need to know what our role is, how we operate, the fact that we focus on key risks and it's not possible to check everything. And that should help restore some of that public faith that's been lost. And I think we can do that by providing more information in the audit report. Right, I've reviewed a few audit reports and I've noticed it's quite standardized wording, but I think we can potentially add value by maybe including sections on there where we would like to draw certain notes to the attention of the public, or certain accounting standards which involve judgment. And I think that would help with providing better, more useful information to the public, which again, as I say, would help restore some of that public faith that's been lost. So, John, one of my biggest weaknesses, which to be honest with you, I have worked on developing and I'd say I have improved on, is time management. So, initially, when I moved from school to university, I found that transition quite tough because I'd gone from an environment where I was just doing my A levels to now studying a degree, working at the same time, all the team sports that I partake in, as well as my social life. So, it was quite difficult for me to manage. And what really helped was I changed my focus. So where I was focusing on activities in the short term, I changed that to a long-term focus where if I knew that I had exams coming up in the next couple of months, I would prioritize revision and prioritize my exams over other activities. So one of the things I learned was how to prioritize tasks effectively. And I wouldn't say that this weakness has completely gone, but the good thing is I think I'll get the opportunity to develop and continuously improve, because I can imagine that same manic schedule being at PwC where you may be focusing on exams at college for a few weeks at a time, but then you have to quickly change into work mode and you may be expected to work longer hours as part of busy season. So John, that's a bit of a tough question because I'm not really someone who brags much, but if I had to choose one of my most positive achievements, that would probably be my education. And I don't mean in terms of my grades or results. It's more about what that represents, because I was the first person in my family to go to university. and my parents are naturally quite proud of that. And the fact is that I now am a role model for my siblings and others within my community to continuously improve, right? It represents continuous improvement, which is great for me. I mean, what I would love is if I got the opportunity to work here and go on and become a chartered accountant, because again, that's another example of continuous improvement. And again, it means I would continue to act as a positive role model for others in my local community. So, guys, what did you think? Would you have hired me based on my performance? Let me know, comment below. But one thing I wanted to make clear, guys, is it could have been very easy for me to have scripted what I think is the perfect answer and inshallah presented that, but that wouldn't have been very natural, right? Because no interview for me and most people has ever gone perfect, right? There'll always be a time when, there may be a question where you're a bit stuck on, you're a bit nervous. So inshallah, hopefully you got a bit of an idea of that through my responses. But I wanted to make sure it's okay, it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to have a question that may trump you. It's absolutely fine, right? So don't feel like when you're doing these interviews, you've got to be perfect, right? Focus more holistically on the message that you're trying to deliver rather than the individual words. But inshallah, let me know what you guys think. If this has helped you, definitely comment below. And guys, if you know anyone who's got an upcoming assessment center partner interview or someone who's just generally interested in accounting and entering the industry, please feel free to share the channel, encourage them to subscribe. I really appreciate the support you guys give.